All right, I'm here today with one of our designers, Alex Johnson. My name is Ryan Blay. I'm one of the partners at 910, and today we're gonna geek out about websites. So Alex is one of our website designers. She's just also a graphic designer generally. So she has both the technical skill set to develop websites and the graphic design skill set to make them look beautiful, and more of a general marketing sort of best practice skill set to sort of know how to structure content so that we can compel visitors on a website to take certain actions. So we're going to geek out a little bit today, and maybe over to you, Alex. Just a quick introduction of yourself, and then kick us off.
Yeah, no, that was a pretty good introduction of me. I've been here 2 years now, almost. July, I think. Yeah, I'm super loving designing all these sites for all of our clients, and I love the challenge it brings. And yeah, I don't know. I like talking about it, so here I am.
And you're also a. Let me get us on speaker view here. Give me a second. You're uh, you're from a family of designers. Both your mother and your father are designers, and they both have capabilities in the web as well. So you sort of grew up in an environment where design was maybe just part of your DNA. I assume that makes it a little bit more intuitive for you to when you're developing websites. We'll get into into the weeds, into the details, but can you just explain your general broad approach on how you sort of approach website design?
Well, when we come to website design, like when we build a brand first for a client, that makes it a lot more, not easier, but more efficient, I guess, to design a website just because we have built the brand from scratch or built the logo from scratch. So the ideas kind of flow faster, I guess, at the start.
Actually, let's just
So
unpack that for a second, because sometimes we'll start designing a website, and we're almost to a certain degree not in control of the look and feel or the design because that's already been pre-established by brand standards that might have been created by another by another agency. So in those cases, you can at least take clear guidance from what's been designed prior, but we actually find ourselves quite a bit of times where there are no brand standards, yet we're being engaged to design a website, but we don't really have any benchmarks to start from. So that's quite different than if we had an initial engagement where we were developing a brand and then taking that brand that you've just developed and rolling it into the website. So maybe sort of unpack that a bit.
yeah, so when we don't have a brand to start off on, sometimes we just have a logo. Sometimes we don't even have a logo. Often clients come with an idea of what they want, and then other times clients just leave it sort of up to us, or they'll bring in websites that they like the look of or the flow of, like just even navigation. And then we can build some of those elements just pulling from other places like that as well. But it's always a good challenge when people come in and don't either have a brand or don't really know if they want anything, and they just want us to kind of come up with ideas. That's always a good way to start a site too. For me, I
Yeah.
find it's a interesting challenge.
So, one of the things I spend a lot of time helping our clients understand is that to a certain degree, building a website is not a sexy process. It's the exciting part of, wow, I'm investing in a website and I've hired a professional agency. And, very early on, the clients want to see the thing, the moving website, the animation, the cool colors, how it all links together. But about 80% of a website project is sort of the planning, the gathering, the content, working out the site map, ensuring that the technical backend is all sort of set up proper. It's not until all of that is organized and we have that in hand that we start designing the website. And so the example I like to use is to sort of imagine designing a poster. Because I find that a lot of people get overwhelmed and a little bit of anxiety because they're like, I don't understand websites that are really complicated and there's all this tech stuff. And I would rather describe our process of designing a website as though we were designing a poster. So if you ask us to design a poster for an event, we're not really going to be able to make much ground on that poster until we understand, well, what's the information? What are the details? What's the date? Do you have any pictures you would like to use? We need to understand the nature of what we're designing. And until we have that information, it's a futile process to get started. And even if we were to get started, we would get not too far pretty, very quickly it would be the case, well, here's a draft and you can see it's mostly empty because we don't have the details we need. Who are the participating partners showing this event? Do we have their logos yet? And to simplify this analogy even more, I always try to compare it to a chef. Imagine if you hired a professional chef to cater a dinner party at your house for your friends and family, and then the chef arrived and there was no ingredients, there was no produce, there was no meats, there was no foods. That chef, you'd be wasting your money on hiring that chef because none of the ingredients are ready yet. So you would either go shopping in advance and buy up a bunch of great quality ingredients, and you say, here they are, here's some salmon, some fish, some cheese, some fresh arugula, whatever. Or you would give them a budget to go shopping on their own. So the same analogy holds true for us when we're starting a website. In the planning phase, we a bit of an inventory. What content already exists? This is words, photos, pricing, packaging, videos, all of that. And depending on what's available, we might say, well, before we start designing, why don't we point you in the direction of some content producers, either our in-house writers to help you write the content that's going to live on the website, or maybe connect you with a local photographer or a videographer so we can build up that list of ingredients that the chef, you being the chef, can then sort of work with that. So talk about the importance of having good content to start with.
Yeah, it's always a nice, I don't know, it's really awesome when we can get good content right away. Building a site from nothing is very hard. It's like not something that any web designer would probably enjoy. The content, and particularly photos, if you want your site to be photo heavy, having beautiful photos can make or break a site. Like it just makes it that much more powerful when you come to a site and you have a good photo and good tagline sitting there or good banner information. That's kind of the way to sort of, one of the main ways that websites bring people into the site and make them want to read more. And then along with content, even though it seems like it's like too much, I know a lot of people say, oh, nobody reads the content, but it's not even that you're just writing content or creating content for the people visiting your site. It's also for search engines. So having good, clean content and a decent amount of it really helps like boost not only the look of your site, because I can have something to work with,
Yeah.
but the SEO side of your site, so search engines.
Yeah, so let's unpack that. So SEO is a sort of an industry jargon term. You don't have to remember it. Anyone listening to this, search engine optimization, SEO. And really what that means is a technical term for what are the things you need to do properly on your website to show up higher in search when people are searching for certain keywords. So, and just to unpack what you said earlier, when we're designing websites, we're actually designing for two audiences, for the humans and for the computer algorithms. And by the algorithm, I mean Google's search algorithm. So when we say to expand on content, you can imagine someone giving us a list of saying, we are an automotive company and here's a bullet point list of what we do. And we say, well, okay, let's expand on that bullet point list to add a lot more detail around, I don't know, frame revisions. I'm making stuff up now that doesn't make sense. But when you imagine a company that has products and services, each product or service you want to expand and you want to give a good amount of information about that. So on our website, for example, and this would be true of anyone who builds a website properly, expanding on the content. We are a branding agency. We're also a website agency. We do a lot of social media marketing. We do a lot of search engine optimization. And if we just had a bullet point that said we do this, that, and the other, Google would then look at that and say, okay, I understand that they say they do this, but there certainly isn't a lot of information here for someone who's searching about that. And then Google might look over to our competitor website, some local competitors, and imagine if they just had more information where they expanded on social media training or on digital marketing campaigns or the importance of SEO. And under SEO, here are our 4 offerings, and here's our process, and here's our pricing, etc. So Google really is just trying to pair people with, when they go to search engine, they say, I'm looking for a website designer in Grand Prairie. Google's tasked with show them the most useful website based on their search term. And if you have a website that's pared down with content, it's generally viewed as just not as useful, as informative as it could be. So we generally want to be expansive on the content while recognizing the point that you had said earlier, that some humans are just like, oh, too much. So when we take lots of content, we try to break it up with design features so your eye can quickly glance through. So you don't necessarily have to read from top to bottom as a human. Your eye can quickly dance, and there'll be large headings, and you'll do quote blocks that sort of stand out. and someone will be able to get the gist of it by just glancing through as though they would be looking at a newspaper. But all of that content is then there being indexed by the search engine. So Google has a strong, full, complete understanding of your wide array of products and services at a granular and detailed level. So this all sounds overwhelming, and it kind of is. And this is to say it's overwhelming to be an entrepreneur and to be able to communicate what your business does in terms of products and services, but you should do that. And maybe we actually find that a lot of times this is the first time companies have had to do that when they're building a website. But then the good news is if you go through that effort to do that, to expand that content for your website, all of that gets repurposed and can be reused later on in social media, on print promotions, on formal quotes and estimates and all of this sort of stuff. So it's a good exercise to do. And so long as someone's ready to invest in working with a professional, there are professionals that can help guide you through those tasks of, so for example, we have both in-house writers as well as a network of freelance writers that will interview our clients as though it's a journalist skill set and gather up all that content. And then now, so of course your charge then, your job, Alex, is to take that content and make it look beautiful and dynamic on the website and sort of add the branding layer on top of that.
Yeah, that's very exactly what we do. And one of the important things that you mentioned there is like checking out your competitors' sites. That's one of like our processes that we usually do in kickoff meetings is just kind of checking out what your main competitors are, how much content they have, and you want to make sure that you're trying to get a little bit more than them so you can be ranked above them, basically. That's the idea.
Geek out a little bit about headings and alt text and metadata, and I'll sort of volley up an example for you. I've gone to websites before on the home page, and the main header says, "Welcome to our website." And let's explain technically why that is a waste of words and is doing you no favors from an SEO perspective.
Yeah, so one of the important parts of SEO is having that first heading one, it's called basically in the back end, is having it be very descriptive of your company or even the name of your company. So if you go to 910, the first thing that shows there is we build websites, which we do. So that's
and it says even more specifically in Grand Prairie.
Yes, yeah. I believe actually not on our site right now, but
I know that we
did before.
Yeah, we tool around with this quite a bit. So these headings, if the best way to think about this is to think of a physical newspaper, like a paper newspaper. Imagine you're at a newsstand and you just quickly look down and you're looking at the Calgary Herald, the Edmonton Sun, the Toronto Star, the New York Times, etc. And you just glance down and you're like, Trump's doing something stupid. This is happening over here. Grand Prairie just announces XYZ. There's floods in Fort Mac, something like this. Now, I didn't stop and read all of those articles. In fact, I didn't even pick up any of them, but I had a quick glance of what the main articles for each newspaper was. How did I do that? Well, my eye caught the large headings. And then all of the detail of the article is now in small print, and I didn't read that. But you can even imagine I quickly opened up a paper, and still I didn't read. I just glanced and I followed the headings down, and I could see that main heading, but then the article would be broken into sort of these subheadings. So headings are a way for humans to visually jump through without reading the article and to get a quick sense of what that paper or that article is about. But there's a direct parallel to how Google indexes websites. So you can imagine Google quickly looking at all of the websites.
Too.
Yeah, it looks at all these millions and billions of website pages, and then it makes a first assumption or a rating, maybe like it indexes based on what did this website heading say and what were the headings and the subheadings. And to the extent that they're descriptive, Google gets a quick initial sense of what this website is about. So it's really important for us to be very specific and descriptive with the headings. So a lot of times we see this all the time. We'll get to a website and it's like the website barely describes the product or service, and it fails to neglect completely where that product and service is offered. So if you offer irrigation and lawn systems in Grand Prairie, but you don't mention Grand Prairie and you just say lawn care, well, what's lawn care? Is that water irrigation system? Is that landscaping? Is it sort of like mowing sort of maintenance, that type of stuff? So what specifically do you do, and what's the trade area, Grand Prairie, Peace Region? If you leave that out, Google won't know about it. If Google doesn't know about it, that's bad news for you in terms of being discovered.
Yeah, on the in the back end of a site, we are tagging those with pieces of code that basically tell a search engine when they're scanning through the site, this is a heading. It's maybe more important than the paragraph below. You should read this. And so when it's scanning your site for the information that's on the site, it'll read those. And if you have a decent amount of important keywords describing your business and describing what you do, your services, all of that, that's the sort of first pieces of information that search engines are getting, and that's important for how they rank the sites.
Yeah, so another thing that's really important is, and we help clients with this, sometimes we'll just provide them guidance so that they can start following this best practice, which will set them up for success later, is when you take a picture with a camera, the camera gives that picture a file name. Let's pretend I were to take, I'll do it right now, smile. Okay, I took a screenshot. I took a screenshot of us talking, and let's pretend that afterwards we post this on our website or on social media. That screenshot that I took has a file name. That file name is meaningless. It doesn't have your name in it. It doesn't have my name in it. Nothing.
It'll be named screenshot and then the time.
That's right. So I would change that file name to Alex Johnson, Ryan Blay, Zoom discussion about website, something like that. Now imagine if we posted a blog article about that, where we're generally posting about tips and tricks for websites, and then we uploaded that picture. That picture now has a file name that is indexable by Google. And when you're uploading it, there's another field on the back end called alternative text. And this is where we can just use plain language, sort of website discussion by Ryan and Alex at 910 Marketing, say something like that. And so it's like, hey, Google, the humans are seeing the picture, but I want you to be aware of this extra information. So you can imagine that later on, if someone's Googling your name or my name or some 910 services, this picture might show up in the search results. Why? Because Google now knows that it's a relevant picture. If someone's Googling Alex Johnson by name, there will be certainly your bio pictures that you have around the web. And now this is a candidate to potentially show up in search because we've tagged it properly. And so half of being discoverable in search is following the best practices of making your stuff discoverable.
Yeah, naming your images and adding alt tags are also very important for SEO. Like you said, Ryan, the search engine needs something to go off of when it's looking at images on your site. And if they're named image with a file number, there is nothing in there.
Sorry, just getting distracted here. No worries, thanks, bud. Just helping my son there. So let's I'm going to do a screen share, and I want to walk through a few examples. So we'll switch gears now to, so 910 is a marketing agency, and one of our specialties is designing websites. We design websites on WordPress. WordPress is the #1 website software in the world. It's open source, which means it's free code for anyone to use and modify and customize. The way I like to think of this is WordPress has all of the built-in infrastructure to get started. And I love analogies. You've heard me use them lots to kind of help people understand. It's like as though we're a custom automotive shop and we're building you a custom car, but there's certain things that we're not going to reinvent the wheel on. We know that you're going to have a frame, there's going to be a chassis, there's going to be 4 wheels, and the steering wheel is going to be on the left if you're in North America. And then from there, we bolt on, everything else can be customized, but that's the starting point. So WordPress to a certain degree is like, that's the starting point. Everything's there. You can change the engine. You can change the color of the paint. You can make it 2-seat or 4-seat. You can make it a fast car, a slow car. You can customize it like all the way up the yin yang. But the starting point is always sort of the base foundation. So that's what WordPress is. Then we have, where we go from there is we generally have 2 categories of websites: single page websites and multi-page websites. And single page websites are just like they sound. They're single page. There's no navigation menu typically. And it's like a simple brochure website. They're quicker to build. They're less costly. And they're for companies that have less information, a simpler offering, or they're just getting started. Whereas a multi-page website has lots of different sections about products and services and career opportunities and safety and all of this sort of stuff. And we'll show some examples. So one of the first choices is, do you need a single page website or a multi-page website? Then the next step we do, regardless of which one you did, is we make an aesthetic judgment. Do you want the gold or the silver package? We don't call them that. our naming structure is Navigator and Storyteller. Those are our names, which will become clear in a moment. But it's like, how fancy do you want it to be? So both packages are fully functional from a technology search engine perspective. They're both going to function well in terms of, they all follow web best practices, but the higher package has a dedicated budget for Alex and our other designer, Emma.
Gives me more room.
To make it look fancy, to basically experiment, do bells and whistles, movements and animations, take that brand and bring it to life and sort of add something that's going to be compelling from a be interesting and beautiful. And it doesn't help you with search engines, but it helps the person have it helps them have a better impression of that. So let's do a screen share here and we'll walk through. We will walk through sort of the stages of our website. So clear view window cleaning is a single page website offering. You can see that there's no navigation menu across the top. The only place to go is to scroll down. There's no sort of animation or movement. It's like a digital brochure. You could imagine someone having a brochure about their company and printing it out. This is pretty much a digital brochure. You can see there's nothing really moving. There's nowhere to visit. You just scroll down. The only thing that's a quasi-interactive, you can think of it, is at the bottom, there's a form where you can get a hold for a quote for a clear view window cleaning. So this is a single page Navigator website. And so Alex, maybe speak to, I guess, the benefits of these websites, how they're quicker to build. Ultimately, they're less sort of dynamic and interesting, but maybe just share your thoughts on this.
Yeah, they don't necessarily have the bells and whistles of the multi-page sites or the like top level storyteller sites, but they're functional. When you're a company that doesn't necessarily have a ton of content for their services, these are like a good option for you. As you can see, it still has like images, it's still bright, it's inviting, it's still got a decent amount of content on there as you scroll down. It's explaining the services clearly. It's doing everything a website is built to do. It's just maybe not as fancy as it can get, and it's definitely not as big as it can get. So if this was going to be a multi-page website, we would have a lot more content and there would be a menu and all those types of things. But yeah, these are a perfect like starter package when maybe it's a new business, but you need a website because it's important to have a web presence out there. And if you, when you're just starting out, like you can just build a smaller, simpler site so that when people are looking you up, they at least have somewhere to go and something that explains to them what your business is.
So this, as long as we follow the best practices that we already talked about, which we do this on behalf of our clients, this will stick a flag in the sand in search land. And, it'll be a good starting point, and room for improvement or an expansion is optional at that point afterwards. I'm going to switch gears to another one. This is one of your early websites when you joined 910, and this is also a single page website, but it's much fancier. And so this is our single page Storyteller being our gold or premium or flagship offering, and single page indicating that it's still a single page website. Now, we have this menu across the top, which we call a faux menu. By faux, I mean fake, pretend. And what this menu is really is doing two things. It's giving the impression as though it's a larger multi-page website, but it isn't. And it's also, secondly, doing the visitor a service where they can click on this and it'll automatically scroll down to that section of the website. So there is actually no multiple pages. There's just the ability to click on something and it auto scrolls to that section. And here we have, animated, banners that change out. We have, can you actually talk about this section? Because this is a tool that we use to add functionality to a single page website when they're starting to get enough content that they can probably almost justify a multi-page website, but we're trying to squeeze a little bit more out of the single page website and finding a way to organize and categorize and separate more content. And maybe talk a little bit about this system.
Yeah, so this is our tabbed interface is basically what we call it on the back end in person. It doesn't have to look like this, but the idea is always going to be the same. You've got a few headings up top, and when you click on them, it's going to open up to that particular content. These, that top one there, the pests library, was actually based on an idea from the client, and he wanted to be able to explain about a few like different types of pests in this case. Doesn't have to be pests for sure.
So did you
But
have
this way
nightmares while
it
you
gives
were
you
did you have nightmares while you were designing this?
yeah, I didn't love looking at spider images constantly. It was a little bit much. But these are, it's just a good way to sort of display a lot of content that's maybe in the same category, but it doesn't necessarily need its own page, or in this case, it can't have its own page. But for this, all of those pests fit under the pest dictionary, so that's why we put them all into one kind of section there.
Yeah. I want to just quickly show here, I'm not sure if this will work on my computer here. All websites, when you scale them down, are mobile friendly. So they just automatically change. You can see that the nature of this sort of interface now changes, and we have a drop-down menu. It looks more like an app interface. So this is called responsive design. The website is responding to the screen size, whether it's a large desktop computer, a tablet, an iPad, or a phone. All websites do that, whether it's a single page Navigator or all the way to our fanciest multi-page Storytellers. But so now that we're on a fancy single page website, which means there's a dedicated budget for Alex to get fancy. Talk about this feature. This is called Parallax, where there's sort of this image that sort of reveals itself on the back end. And it's really just to sort of add interest and kind of use different imagery, and maybe talk a little bit about how you use features like Parallax or other animations and rollover effects.
Sure. Actually, before we move on to this, though, just back to the responsive site that you were talking about, that's another thing that's extremely important for SEO. If your site doesn't respond in that way and it doesn't resize when you're on a phone, Google will definitely give you strikes, basically, and they won't rank your site as high. So it's extremely important to have a site that's mobile friendly. Everybody's on their phones these days. So
yeah, if someone's Googling pest control because they have vermins in their basement,
they're probably doing it on their phone.
That's right. If they're doing it on their phone and they're Googling pest control, and then there's 3 options in Grand Prairie and 2 of them have non-mobile friendly websites, Google is not sending that person who's searching from the phone. It'll give an edge up to, it rewards the mobile phone.
Yeah.
It actually, worse than that, it penalizes the non-mobile friendly website. So you can think of Google as either rewarding or penalizing you for the quality and the content of your website as compared to your peers. And
it likes the popular sites. If you've got all of the cool, fancy, responsive stuff, then it wants your site to be ranked first. Plus, it's just annoying to view a site that's not responsive on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back to the parallax sections. That's just a design element we use. Again, it doesn't necessarily add any special stuff to your site to make it rank higher, but it's just a way to make your site look nicer. It gives it a little bit, I don't know, just a little bit something extra there. Like, it's kind of cool to watch the photo scroll by and maybe you don't notice it right away, but you see it and it's just a little bit more of a design element that just adds to the feel of the site. And obviously there's a lot of green on this site. There's a lot of green in the logo. So that's kind of where we took it from.
Yeah, it adds depth to it. There's actually 2 layers, a foreground and a background. And quite often, if clients are working with photographers, we will give direction to the photographer to also get some sort of abstract photos. Like if it's, say, the headroom, we'll get that to an example. Maybe do a close-up shot of all of the hair care products on the wall, which we know that we'll use that as a background element because it's got lots of dynamic colors and all of the brands that they sell. And that could be a sort of an image that we would use as a good candidate for a background parallax feature.
Yeah, it's nice to have images if you are working with a professional photographer that aren't just detail shots of your services or people doing your services or using your services. Having like shots of your building, your location if you can, or just like kind of shots of the area, or like this is just a sort of a shot of the inside of the store, but with green paper. Those aren't professional images, but it would be nice to have some sort of like plant looking images that aren't necessarily anything related specifically to the business, but they work well as background photos on the site.
Yeah. So I'm now showing, I've gone to Face Boutique, which is another example of a single page website, Storyteller, which is to say it's fancy, but it's a single page website. Again, we have this faux menu, which if you click on it, it just scrolls you down. but I wanted to introduce some elements. So sometimes what we do is we review the content that the client has. And so in this case, Danny wanted to showcase her team, and we wanted to have that in sort of a expand collapse interface, where normally each one of these would live on its own sort of profile or bio page for each of the
team members.
Yeah, team members, that's the right word. But we decided to do this little interactive sort of accordion feature. So what this is this is a module, and the module is accordion feature, expand, collapse, and we've just decided to put some content in there, which in this case happens to be the team members. So on the back end of the website, it's very easy for Danny to add or remove and to reorder and to quickly change out these. So if Melissa has a new photo, there'd be a drag and drop face, remove the old photo, add the new photo, hit save, and boom, it's done there. And they can just put in the information, and all of the styling and the formatting happens automatically by the website. And they can just drag and drop the content on their own.
And this is another good way of adding more content to a site that's maybe shorter or smaller. With the single pages, we don't have the extra pages to use, but we can use something like this so your site doesn't go on forever, but you still get to add a decent amount of content to it.
That's right. It's a slightly different variation of really this tabbed interface. Here we did it as an accordion. We typically use the accordion for the FAQ section, which actually was on the bottom of GP Pest Control as well. Commonly asked questions, question answer format, very simple. Now, sometimes there's little cool features where, like, this is a before and after. You upload 2 photos. That's before the treatment. That's after the treatment. We've used this feature before for like companies where they do roofing or siding. It's like, here's a picture of the house before the siding. Here's the beautiful picture of the house after the siding. Or for an automotive shop, vehicles wrecked, now it's fixed. And so this is one of many, many examples of feature functionality that we can add to the website to make it a little bit more viable. Going to switch gears now over to Haven Beauties. This is the last example of a single page website that's fancier. And again, it has some of the things that we talked about, but you can see now there's this sort of button that's following us down, kind of always there, hey, start shopping. And then you can actually see here, there's some featured products, shop all of the lash products. And if I click on shop or on the product or here, what'll happen is it'll bring me to now, Marley has a Shopify store. And so Shopify is an e-commerce engine that allows you to do e-commerce, to sell products and services. And the good thing about Shopify is it's a pre-built e-commerce engine that you can license. It's Canadian built. They have wonderful human level support, and it allows you to add functionality to integrate with your website so clients can very easily manage products and sell them online, which is of course relevant right now with sort of COVID-19 and quarantine. A lot of businesses are trying to take the leap into e-commerce. In the case of Marley with Haven Beauties, they actually sort of took the e-commerce step prior to that. But Alex, what are your thoughts? You want to maybe just geek out on anything related to this site or e-commerce maybe?
Yeah, e-commerce is obviously super important for any company that has a store or can sell things online, particularly now more than ever with everybody being stuck at home and wanting to online shop. Shopify is a really awesome platform. We use it for, I think any e-commerce site we've ever done has been Shopify.
We've done others as well. Shopify is our go-to.
Yeah.
We've worked with BigCommerce, we've worked with Woo, we've worked with Lightspeed, we've worked with Magento maybe, but let's not geek out too much about that.
Yeah, just being accessible to your customers or clients here is what the point of e-commerce is. If you have something to sell and can ship it, why not have e-commerce online, right?
Yeah. So let's switch gears now to we're done with the single page websites. We finished with looking at the sort of fancier ones. Now let's look into the multi-page websites. So here we're on, did you design this website?
Yes, not that banner though.
Yeah, so for Harold's, this is for Harold's Towing. A lot of people will recognize Harold's vehicle. They've done a great job with their branding. This was not us. This is a good example where the look and feel of the website, you had such clear direction from their very well-established brand of their prominent blue and orange from all of their marketing, their logo, and specifically their fleet of painted trucks. And you're able to have that come alive in a multi-page website.
Actually, Ryan, this was the first Navigator site I ever did here.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't you just give us a little bit of an overview on that?
Yeah, so this is one of the sites that we didn't have any branding to work off of. Or we didn't design the branding basically, but those blue and orange colors are seen around town, and their trucks look super awesome. So we wanted to make a site that matched the trucks basically. They had really nice photos done of all of their fleet together. So that made it helpful for designing the banners there. And then basically this site just has multiple pages to show all of their services. It's got an equipment page to show the different types of trucks they have. It's got safety to show like their certifications and whatever safety certifications they need to have. And you can see they've got a lot of content per page, and that is just super helpful for not only humans trying to find them, but for search to rank them when someone is searching for them. And it's also helpful when you can find an answer to your questions on a site already. So if you're looking for a specific service and you can see it right there, then you're probably more likely to call this company over somewhere where you maybe can't find that information or can't find what you're looking for.
And this is a good example where you can see with how much content there is, how many, their wide range of services. They want to also showcase their equipment. They also want to talk about safety. Have a photo gallery of all over their fleet and jobs they've done. They have information about their impound lot. This would be a lot of information to contain or cram into a single page website, even if we did use those creative tabs that we had showed before on pest control. So, but some of the things about the Navigator websites is you can see that it's sort of the design is boxed in. There's sort of some room on the edge. There's not much for like interactive rollover features. It looks beautiful. It's custom design. It has a beautiful brand. And actually a note here is one of the things that made it easier for this job is they came to the table with with ingredients in hand, because of that analogy of the chef. They work with local photographers, and so they have a lot of beautiful photos. And I know specifically William Vavrick, a local photographer, has taken a lot of photos professionally of the Herald's fleet doing jobs in the lot, all of that. And so we had, Alex, you had much more to work with there.
Yeah,
So,
and they also had an awesome like brand and colors already kind of set up. Like anybody who's been to Grand Prairie can see the Herald's towing trucks, and like they know who that is. So that also helped.
just unmute myself there. So next up, let's go to another example of a multi-page Navigator website. This is Fletcher Mudrick, a local accounting firm. We work with them as well. And here's an example of, again, it's a Navigator website. It has multiple pages because they have lots of information they want to contain. And it's just worth noting that although single page websites and multi-page websites both follow the same technical practices, one will perform generally better on search, and it's the multi-page. The reason being simply is multi-page websites tend to have more content that has been expanded upon, which generally gives better, more useful information for humans, which Google then recognizes. You can think of it a different way. If you condense everything down to one single page, by definition, you're probably leaving some things out and you're not expanding as much as you could. Whereas if you had multi-pages where all of that content can live and breathe and be expanded on, whether that's about your tax services or your history of your company, et cetera. So now sometimes what we do is we do some customization where we integrate onto the website. We showed the example of Shopify, which is e-commerce, but here you can see there's a client portal and there's pay online. So let's just go into both of those examples. So the first one, let's go to pay online. So Fletcher Mudrick gives the ability to securely allow its clients to pay their invoices online. We do the same thing with our website. So when I send out an invoice, I personalize it. I asked them for a testimony of how we did and said, click on this secure link and you can pay you can conveniently pay your invoice online. So that this is now a tool on a website that helps, in this case, to helps with cash flows and payables to decrease the time it takes to get your receivables sort of gone through. So when you send out an invoice and there's a link there with no reason why you didn't want to click on this, it sort of takes away some of the delays that can typically be that can come along with sort of getting payments if you're not an industry that pays upfront.
This is
So
just another case of making things easier for your clients and your customers. There's a lot of things you can do online now with regards to banking. So being able to pay an invoice right on a site online securely is super helpful for clients when they're...
yeah. So you just said securely. So I'm hovering over the top where there's this lock icon in the browser bar, and it looks different on different browsers, but that lock that lock indicates that this is a securely encrypted hosted site. It's an SSL certificate. Don't have to remember that means secure socket layer. What it really means is this website is securely encrypted. And this has been traditionally only for websites that have passing of information of sensitive data. So medical records, personal information, credit card information, payment. So when someone puts in their information in a form, their credit card information, and hits send, well, that goes through a pipe, let's call it, over to the company. And that pipe, the internet, let's call it, is encrypted. So if you don't have it encrypted, it could get hacked, it could get sniffed out. So it used to be that most websites only had secure hosted websites if they were e-commerce or had sensitive data. About 2-3 years ago, we mandated all of 910 websites are securely hosted whether you want it or not. It is not an option. Now it's more of an industry trend where Google will penalize you if you don't. So again, if someone's searching for a website firm and there's our website and another website and this one's not secure and this one is, Google will likely prioritize the more secure website. So by having all of 910's websites secure, we make our clients' websites more secure from being hacked and confidential information, but our entire server space is more secure as well because the entire infrastructure is securely hosted.
Another way you can tell if your site is secure or not, Ryan, if you just click on the URL there.
Yeah. The HTTPS.
Yeah, if I don't know if all of the browsers show the lock, but if you see HTTPS in front of your URL, that means your site is secure.
Yeah, as opposed to HTTP. The S signifies secure. Again, we will just automatically do this for clients if they, for all of their websites. And this is an example of a best practice. So, I don't like jargon and buzzwords. So like best practice, it sounds so cliche. What is a best practice? A best practice is a decision of a certain level of quality standard that no matter what, we're going to do it. We have a choice to not do it, but we're going to do it. So some best practice standards that we implement are securely hosted websites, mobile friendly, we properly use headings and metadata, sort of all these sort of things. And you can imagine that that list gets long and long and long and long and long, and there becomes a point where it just is too costly to do all of them. So there are some things that would be great for us to do, but it's not in the budget for an entry-level website. But we've determined that that's not going to make you more vulnerable or less likely to be discovered on search, but is it an area for improvement? Sure, if you're ready to invest in it. And there's this law of diminishing returns. So 910's base packages both have a set fee to get started, but they also include a certain amount of
technical services.
Yeah, like if you want a website from 910 that's not mobile friendly, it'd be quicker for us to build. We won't do it. It's a bad idea. Don't do that. Same thing with, I would prefer to not pay for the secure hosting. We're not the firm for you. We only build securely hosted websites. Now the portal, the Fletcher portal, so that's just going back up here, client portal. You can see when someone clicks on that, I'm just showing it another tab, it went to Fletcher Mudrick LLP portal, and you can see that this is now a different address up top. Really all we've done here is we've linked them to a secure portal, which is set up by a different technology infrastructure, and it's been sort of managed that way. So let's go to Triple Threat Diesel. Why don't you give us an overview of this? This is our first Storyteller.
Yeah, this is also the first Storyteller that I ever did here. This was a good site to do. I don't know, they had a lot of cool photos of stuff that I didn't know what it was, but it's engine things, basically.
Engine things.
Yeah, clearly I know what I'm doing with cars. Trucks, sorry. Yeah, this is a Storyteller site, so you can see like it does get a little bit more fancy, or a lot more fancy than the Navigator. So there's no background, it's not boxed in the same way, and we basically have almost free range to make this site as cool and as interactive as we want. We add, like you can see, there's modules there, there's little hover effects here and there. This front page is a bit more of a story. If you are thinking about the name Storyteller, we try to go through and provide like little snapshots of what is going to be found inside the site on the homepage, so that if you're scrolling down, there's always a way to find your way into other pages of the site.
Yeah, let me stop and unpack the reason why we've named this Storyteller versus Navigator. And the idea here comes from almost, again, the analogy of when you're watching TV and you see a commercial for a movie and you watch a movie trailer, that movie trailer might have been 30 to 45 seconds long, but you got a really good sense of what the movie is, the genre, who the main characters are, what's the plot, they save the earth or whatever the heck, and you got a really condensed view of this. And so with Storyteller websites, we also try to do that on the homepage. So you should be able to just scroll down the homepage and you should be able to get a very clear and detailed overview of what the company does, with all of these sort of touch points or sort of chances to learn more and dive into the belly of the beast, which is into the various pages of the website. So the Storyteller websites were primarily designed for mobile. So instead of, although you can scroll down like I'm doing right now with my mouse, it works really well to scroll with your thumb. And on mobile, it's a lot easier to just scroll upwards with your thumb as opposed to click and have it load again. So Storyteller websites tend to have more information on the homepage, and we place it in the order that we want the story to unfold. So are we focusing first on your products and services, or your team, or that you're hiring, or that you just open up a new division, or that you're moving? We determine what's the most important thing you want to communicate, and then the next, and then the next, and the next. And it's just a high-level overview. And if they want more information about your career opportunities, they click on that, and then they're into that section of the website.
Yeah, and this is something we often take from our clients themselves. If we're writing for the site, our writer will sort of discuss that with the client. If not, we ask in our kickoffs usually. And if they don't necessarily know, we kind of take it from our own experience and see what we think that would be the thing people are looking for the most, and we lay it out that way.
Yeah, and I'm just going to pull up another Navigator website as an example, just to bring up a new one. So Turcon Construction, this is a well-known construction company in Grand Prairie. It's a Navigator. So what does the Navigator site mean? So you can obviously scroll down, but unlike the Storyteller, there's quite a bit less story to be told, if you will. This interactive project portfolio, this was actually an upgrade. This is like a Storyteller-ish upgrade, a little bit more dynamic, but this typically isn't included in the base package of, just this section is not typically included in the base package of the Navigator. So the way that you would go through a Navigator website is to use the navigation menu. You really have to lean on the navigation menu to get where you want. Whereas on the Storyteller website, the navigation menu is there, but mostly we encourage you to scroll down, and then you'll sort of more organically be pulled into the area of the website that has caught your attention based on the storytelling, let's call it. So let's switch gears over to Janina's. So this is a behemoth of a website. This is an example of sort of our most full-featured website. It's a multi-page website. It has e-commerce built in. It's got third-party widgets for live chat and things like that. So maybe talk a little, and just the sheer size of this website in terms of how many pages are on here, whether it's about their goldsmith services, their jewelry appraisals, to all of their brands they carry, their blog, their social media. Talk a little bit about the size of this website and what effect that has on both search engines and just making more information available for customers.
Yeah, so this site has a lot of information. I think it's one of our biggest sites, like with regards to pages and information wise. And again, what you're doing there with as much information as possible is you're just basically making it easier for browsers to rate you or rank you in search engine searches. So when someone is searching for anything jewelry in Grand Prairie, Janina's is almost certainly going to come up because they cover pretty much anything you can think of for jewelry in their content there. So there's always going to be a search that will show Janina's, basically.
That's right. And you might search for, say, wedding bands or engagement rings or watches or timepieces, and everyone will use different words. And then Google will see, well, I can bring them to the specific brand page that has the watch information for, say, Rolex, or I can bring them to the section where dedicated to timepieces or dedicated to engagement rings or how to choose a diamond. Someone might be Googling what's the difference between a princess cut diamond and emerald cut diamond. And then you can, Janina's has information about that. So it's just more information to be discovered. And really what, again, we're trying to do is we're legitimately convincing Google that if someone is searching for something related to jewelry or timepieces, this has got to be the website you send them to, or at least consider it in one of the, top 1 to 3 search results. So, and then
not only does it help search engines find your site and show your site to people, but if someone can find the information they're looking for on your site, they're so much more likely to use your services or go to your store or anything like that when they can find information like through your website and information that they know to be true because it's a trusted brand. That is another reason to have a lot of content on your site.
Yeah. Now, one thing people will notice about this is the polish and how beautiful it is. And again, we had good ingredients to start with. Their vendors, in this case, Rolex, has obviously beautiful assets, photos, videos that we can leverage. Plus, Janina's has also invested in professional photographers, local photographers. They would have used Beauchamp photography for a lot of this. So this is real jewelry from their store. These are real people. This is their team members. And this is a good example too, where just recently in the last 3 weeks or since we've been in sort of quarantine land, we helped Janina's very quickly pivot to get online we created the Janina's pop-up shop, which I just preloaded that in another window. And this is now a Shopify e-commerce store, which is linked to their website. And this is not all of their inventory. It's an initial set of inventory. And they chose to, as you can see, there's a catalog in here and they've categorized it primarily by gifts and jewelry under $250 or over $500 and sort of in between. But you can also browse by brand or by type. And, again, this would have been a case where we built a Shopify website. You and the team would have customized this, created, beautiful sort of graphics to go below to represent, in this case, the rings or the earrings. And again, we still had wonderful, beautiful imagery to use. Maybe talk a little bit about the process of, even though we're doing the heavy lifting on setting up and configuring the e-commerce, we still need to lean on the client for some level of, say, homework, some doing on their end. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and this is one of the more customized Shopify sites we have that we've done recently, at least. And one of the main things is we had a lot of help on their end for uploading the catalog to this site. So Janina's went through, they decided what they were going to put on the site, and then they imported all of the spreadsheets that needed importing. So when you go through the catalog and you see all of the products, those were actually all imported by Janina's staff themselves. So they knew what they wanted to have on there. They had all the pictures for them. They had all of the descriptions for them, the prices, everything set in there. Once you have a spreadsheet of that, it does actually import fairly simply, I believe. But doing the work of organizing what products you want, categorizing them, putting all of the descriptions in there, and uploading all of the photos, that's really the brunt of the work that they did on their end.
Yeah, and on the sort of geeky side, Richard would have helped them to help them organize how to gather all the content, the details and information and pricing description about each SKU, about each product, so that Richard could then help them with a mass import as opposed to having to manually do it. So this is where you get in, and there's also ways to integrate with POS systems so that your store retail POS system updates the website automatically via this sort of technology integration. And so that would be an example of another higher level integration that we can help clients with.
Yeah, and shipping is another thing that you have to think about when you're doing e-commerce. So that's a big process on the background to figure out who you're going to ship through, how you're going to calculate shipping, and all of that.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say free shipping or flat fee shipping or calculate the shipping based on what they're buying, which is where it gets a little bit more complicated. The Shopify has built-in tools through Canada Post and UPS to calculate that automatically, but it needs weight and dimensions, which is now every time you upload a product, you have to put in weight and dimensions so that it can calculate it properly based on shipping to Alberta or Manitoba or Quebec, which is going to be different rates depending again on how big the package and how it will be in its weight.
Exactly.
So I'm going to switch gears to now the headroom. So Danielle is another local entrepreneur. We've built a sort of a fancy multi-page website. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but again, it's a multi-page website, and actually there was a really cool feature that we built, which is choose your stylist. I'm not going to go through this, but you can answer a few questions, and then based on the questions you answer, it'll tell you which 2 or 3 of the stylists have the right level of training and education to sort of match with the type of hair treatment you're looking to do, whether it's color or treatment. I'm obviously using the wrong words. It's out of my comfort zone.
And this is another a good example of a site where maybe you're thinking, I don't necessarily need the fancy looking site, but this is a business where their salons are extremely like nice on the inside. I don't know. I always like going to the headroom because it's beautiful inside. And so we wanted the site to really represent the look and feel of their business. And that's where the fanciness comes into play as being important for the site. And because when a client looks at this site, they want to go there because it looks nice, right? And maybe this isn't them seeing the exact store or salon, but they're going to think, hey, this is a nice website. They probably have a nice salon too.
Yeah. So I just using I wanted to get a chemical treatment, and then I'm looking for brunettes, and then it tells you can see like here's the stylists that are the best fit depending on what you're looking for, and it's this dynamic grid. And holy wow, I forgot how large of a team of professional stylists that Danielle has. Danielle's the owner. But Danielle is also an entrepreneur that rolls up her sleeves, and just recently she built her own e-commerce store on Shopify, which is something I do encourage. You do not always need to go to an agency like us to get started. So in this case here, where does she have the?
Oh, shop online. There's a button if you scroll down there.
Shop online right there. So actually, that's maybe a good example. I was just struggling to find where that shop button is, and she has a banner here, but it's not anywhere listed in the menu up here. So actually, Alex, just take a note as a courtesy service. Let's go into that and make it a more prominent shop button somewhere on the homepage for her. That's not going to be on the banner. That might sort of disappear. But anyways, once you do get into the shopping section, let me just pull it up again. So now we're in Shopify land, and she's leveraging Shopify's pre-built sort of features. And again, you can see that she dropped in some beautiful custom high quality photos, and she would have taken the time to develop her color home kits and take a nice picture of it. And she's did a little bit of customizing and tooling around in Shopify, and she set up her categories of her catalog: shampoo and R&Co products, Evo products. So she has them categorized by brands here. Let's go check out the home color kits. I know that these have been popular on social media.
Yeah,
so
I believe this was super popular for her, selling all of these during the quarantine time, or this quarantine time.
Yeah, she's obviously making herself, the company, more relevant and more accessible through e-commerce, whether it's delivery in the mail or pick up at the store or contactless delivery, that type of thing. So when we get involved with doing the Shopify on behalf of the client, we tend to do more customization. It's because there's a POS integration, or maybe we want to license a theme and do some custom design and make it look fancier, or we need to help them with some custom shipping where it's like, or a BOGO, buy one, get the second one discount, and then there's more sort of configuration. But if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and you're not afraid of technology, Shopify is fairly friendly to use. Last example of a website. This is a website that we recently built for High Tech Business System, another local prominent firm. It's a sort of fancy website, but look how big this website is in terms of information. So
yeah, this menu was something that was a big feature on this site, because they have so many different services, and we wanted to showcase all of them right there. The menu is something that we built through an external plugin, I believe, in order to display that for them.
Yeah, and so now websites of this size have a lot of preparation phase, gathering content phase. So before Alex was in a position to start designing this, she needed all of the content. And so This website did include a writing budget where we interviewed their team across all of their various divisions about IT solutions, about printers, about network security, and we wrote all of the content out with two audiences in mind, which we've already covered: the humans and the search engines. And then we started to design the pages, but you can see this is custom photography. And High Tech just recently moved buildings, and it's a beautiful new building, and they invested in professional photography so they could tell a visual story about their team and about the High Tech family, about their new office, about
All
the
their
products.
services.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so this is before any of the design or development starts. There was an investment in the content, which is to say there's the investment in go and buy the ingredients, get the fresh produce, right? So they have beautiful photography, and they invested in the words, which we've written the words again, both for a human who wants to come and learn about the products and services, or for a search engine to properly understand the nature of their business.
Yeah, again, you already said it, but can't stress enough how awesome it is when clients have professional photos taken, or maybe they're good enough at photography that they've taken them themselves, but it just makes a site look that much better for their customers who are visiting the websites.
Yeah, and so we covered lots today. There's entry-level single-page websites that are not too fancy, to these behemoth multi-page websites with third-party integration and e-commerce and sort of all this sort of like lots of content that's optimized for search. But in that whole spectrum, all the while we're helping to guide clients through that. We do most of the heavy lifting. We do not ask nor require of our clients to be tech savvy. We require them to know about their business. If a client can't sit down with us and explain to us what their products and services are, they're not ready for a website. That doesn't mean we can't work with them, but it means we're not starting a website yet. We have to first define what your products and services are, who your market is, what makes you different, what makes you unique. We have to build that sort of story. And most of the times, clients who come to work with us are already in a position where they're fairly well established. But startups, quite often, they don't really know who they are yet. So this is the sort of navel gazing exercise of looking inwards and sort of trying to figure out who you are before you ask a vendor like or an agency like 910 to build a website to show the public who you are, if you don't even know who you are yet in terms of your products and services and your trade area and sort of what makes you unique.
Sure.
So last question to you: why should companies invest in a website?
Well, it's just a really good, you said it before, best practice to have an online presence. You could say that Facebook and like the social media channels are enough, but having a sort of hub on the internet where clients or potential customers can find you is extremely important for business, to build your business, for people to find your business, to even use your services. It just makes your company look that much more legit, I guess is the word, really, when you have a website that is built properly and explains your services in an easy to view manner.
Yeah, you mentioned the hub. So I like to think of a hub and spoke model where your website is the hub or the center of your online presence. And then the spokes are your Facebook page, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your Google My Business directory. Maybe you're on TripAdvisor if you're in tourism or hotel, all of these different touch points on the web. But they should all drive traffic back or link back to your website. Your website is your owned space. You own it. You get to choose the size, you get to choose the fanciness, you get to choose the colors, you're in control of it. It has you do whatever you want, so long as it's possible within that sort of technology best practice. Whereas Facebook is great and powerful, but you're not in control. It's going to be white and blue. There's a news feed. Your logo goes here. If you want it to work differently, it does not work differently. Facebook will not take your call for a feature suggestion change.
Yeah,
so
they don't care.
That's right. But these platforms, these touch points I like to think of them as touch points. They're possibilities for you to engage and to encounter, to have people discover you, and then drive traffic back to your website. So two of your primary sources of traffic into your website should be search engines and social media. And there's more to it than that, but on a high level rule of thumb, that's a good way to think about it. So
yeah, and having those, we call them backlinks to your site is also another way to boost your SEO. You've heard us say SEO already, but that's another bonus for your site when it's popular and has a lot of links to it.
Yeah.
Google.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just Google likes that. They like the popular sites. So the more you can have linking back to you, the better.
Perfect.
Whether that's through reviews, directories, social media, whatever you can get out there.
All right. Anything else you wanted to add about websites before we close this off?
No, I think we've gone a little further than we originally planned to. So,
other than you would love to build someone a website to help make their business more prominent online.
Yes, for sure.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex.
See ya.